Welcome back to What You Want More podcast. I'm your host, Quinton Harris. You're dialed in for episode 238. And hey, I kind of want to title and talk about this episode as Scott Bessent may be the unsung hero for real estate. And what I mean by that is, to me, it's apparent that the economic position of this administration is to drive down the cost of the 10-year Treasury, amongst other things. You know, they got a target on oil, and if you listen to energy, if you listen to Trump's speech to Congress last Tuesday, his congressional address, you know that they're harping on making the economy, in their opinion, better by lowering or keeping inflation tempered by lowering the cost of oil and energy. But there's this beat of the drum of we got to get the housing affordable and we got to get the 10-year down. And so I want to talk about what they're doing. I want to show some of the things that are happening in the credit market that I think are really interesting. It's a trend that we've been discussing on this show since the start, and also talk about what may be the canary in the coal mine. That and more in this episode of What's Your One More. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent recently spoke on CNBC last Friday, and he said some stuff to me that I was like, man, I think this guy, he gets it more than anyone in the entire administration, because he gave his thoughts on the economy. And so I'm going to use some quotes here that he said. And I think it was, to me, like I said, he's spot on. He explained that the market and the economy has recently become hooked on and addicted to government spending. And there's going to be a detox period to get away from that that's going to impact the economy and impact the businesses. He also said that this economy that they inherited is really going to start to roll a little bit, and meaning that he's expecting a little bit of a slowdown. And because of what they're doing and kind of this detox period, he said, at least temporarily, there's going to be some slowdowns. And he made it clear that this is not going to be their economy until month 6 all the way through month 12, meaning that, hey, I kind of look at it like this, and it makes a lot of sense to me. We always talk about the windfalls of an administration when they first come in, that they may be riding the coattails of a previous administration. Well, it could also be said that if there's things that were negative coming out of the previous administration, you're going to ride the negative coattails of that for the first 6 to 12 months in this case. But I look at like a football analogy. Like if you have a college team that you like and they get a new coach, that new coach is going to come into a program where he has potentially other coaches, but definitely players that he didn't recruit. They're not, quote unquote, his people. And it takes time to get your people into your system to see the product of your system. Otherwise, you're trying to just convert people into your system. And sometimes there's some resistance to that. And there's an adaptation period that just doesn't always translate to success on the field. And I feel like that's the same thing Scott Bessent's saying about the economy, is that, hey, listen, there's some things that are put into place that we didn't do, and we've got to get to our policies and see them take effect. And as we've talked about on the show, anytime there's an economic policy, it's traditionally not a direct impact. There's a slow roll in there. There's a time in which it takes to facilitate that policy through the system. And in this case, he's saying, hey, give us 6 to 12 months, then judge us on this economy. Because between now and then, we're cutting off some things, as he called it, a detox period, that's going to cause some temporary slowdowns. And I'm like, yeah, this guy gets it. And I mean, he's actually talking in manners that make sense. And so when I take a look at some of the things he said that could be temporary slowing down, 2 episodes ago, we talked about some delinquencies we saw in the recent report from the New York Fed. And the reason this is important is because when we talked about those delinquencies, there were concerns in the credit card and the auto sectors that we specifically pointed out. And as of last week, Fitch Ratings came out and said, hey, the highest level of delinquencies in basically automobile loans that they've seen since 1995. And, auto loan delinquencies in this chart, and again, if you're listening to this, go to our YouTube channel at What's Your One More with the number 1. This is a really cool chart here because they break the auto loans down. And again, subscribe to the channel, leave us some comments. Always appreciate what you guys have to say. But there's 2 different types of loans. There's prime auto loans and subprime auto loans. And, in case you're not aware, subprime are people that are a little bit more credit challenged than the prime auto loans. The prime auto loans are performing. However, the subprime are at the highest levels they've seen since 1995 of delinquencies. And that's kind of alarming because that's higher than, obviously, what we saw during the quote-unquote greatest real estate depression time that happened there. And everyone kind of resorts back to that as, oh, this is a warning sign that the credit market's going to crash. I don't think the credit market's going to crash. I think that, as we divulged in that report, the bulk of these delinquencies are between the ages of 18 and 39. Same with the credit card debt. But there's some key factors on the auto side that are applying pressure, just like on the housing side. And those key factors are going to be the cost of insurance and the higher interest rates. Because, in this same report, they're reporting that that car insurance rates are up 19% year over year. And that's a big deal because that's up 33% from 2020 when a lot of these cars were bought and purchased. And that the higher than normal interest rates are at 9% for new cars and 14% for used. Now, again, I think the difference between the car market and the housing market here is that, you can turn your car back in and you could be a one-car household if you're two. You can't really turn your house in and, because you don't have two houses and become a one household family. Also, these cars don't have equity positions in them like the housings do. And we've talked about this over and over again. And also, if the bulk of the delinquencies are coming between the ages of 18 and 39, you could also very easily draw a conclusion most of those are not homeowners. And I continue to bring this up because the more I continue to do research, I keep seeing a lot of the same people online talking about the doom and gloom. The crash is coming. You hear me say this almost every episode now because I'm going to continue to debunk it with facts as to why that's not happening. And a meltdown in the consumer credit market is not going to directly mean a meltdown in the housing market. Matter of fact, I look at that as an opportunity in the housing market. And let me kind of tell you why. Because people that have credit card debt that own a home, they also have equity. They can absorb that credit card debt through a refinance and get their payments down much lower, even in today's rate environment, and be unscathed, if you may, during this credit potential issue in the credit card market. But I keep going back to the bulk of those defaults are 18 to 39 years old between auto and credit card. That's a big difference when you take a look at the homeowners market where you don't necessarily see those same default rates. And so in the third quarter of 2024, the number of 30-day delinquencies rose almost 4%, which essentially marked the highest rate we've seen since 2021. And again, I keep going back to that because there's some issues here. The number of credit card holders that are making minimum payments right now versus paying the credit card off is up 12%, is up and up to a 12-year high from the Philadelphia Federal Reserve's numbers. So we're seeing people making minimum payments. And I go back to the job market on the last episode we had about, hey, people are hurting. They've got part-time jobs to go along with full-time jobs just to make payments. This also shows up in these retail sales that we talked about that, hey, the sales are down because the consumer's tapping out. They're making minimum payments, and those minimum payments can be pretty pricey. So your household budget, it's only so much. You can only expand it to the point to where it kind of busts and you can't do any more, which may be why you're seeing some of these defaults happening in the credit card, even in the auto side of things. So in the final part of that interview, Bessent also reiterated that the tariffs were just a one-time thing and that you'll see the price adjustment at one time. But he also pointed out the fact that oil prices and mortgage rates were coming down. And I think that's important because it's like, there it is. The one thing that could help lower monthly payments is rates coming down, because if mortgage rates come down, going back to what I just said, those homeowners now can unlock that lock-in effect, absorb some of this credit card debt, get a lower payment, even at the current rates of what they're currently seeing out there on the market. Because why? They'll probably refinance again when they drop down in the fives in the second quarter and the third quarter, like we've talked about here. It's just a great opportunity. But the recent highs in delinquencies in the auto and credit card market are being referred to by quite a few economists now as the canary in the coal mine. And I think that's interesting. Now, just a quick lesson for those who don't know what that means. I told that to someone the other day, and they said, I'm willing to bet most people don't even know what canary in the coal mine means. I don't know. Charlie, do you know what that means by chance? No, he's shaking his head no. So this is real quickly here. So in the oil industries, the canaries were used essentially to help forecast and get a better range of carbon dioxide and levels of it that could be harmful to the coal miners. So the canary in the coal mine story, when we say something like that, it means that it's an early warning sign of danger. So not surprising, the origin of that expression is actually literal, but canaries were historically used to test for carbon monoxide and other toxic gases underground in the mines. And, canaries are a good early detector of carbon monoxide because they need immense quantities of oxygen to fly. And so their anatomy allows them to get a dose of oxygen when they inhale and another when they exhale. And so by holding air into their body as quickly as they do, they get that double dose of air, and any type of contamination in the air could cause them to pass out, right? And so in the coal mines, dating all the way back to the late 1800s, all the way to 1987, these canaries were used. But it was in a humane feature that I thought was pretty interesting. So, despite this dangerous role they had in the coal mines, these birds were not sacrificed by the sake of the miners. That's not how it worked. A gentleman by the name of John Scott Haldane, excuse me, I'll look it up here. He designed a special cage, and I actually thought it was kind of cool because this canary in the coal mine story drove me to find this and look it up here. But I put a copy of what it looks like in here and pictured below that actually protected these canaries, and the circular door would actually open when they would have down in the coal mine, and it had a grill to prevent the canaries from escaping. Once the canary showed signs of carbon monoxide poisoning, the door would be closed and the oxygen valve would open, thus resuscitating the canary and bringing them back to life. And it was pretty cool because these miners became so attached to these canaries that they wanted to make sure they were protected and that they too didn't suffer from this carbon monoxide that was down there. And it's kind of a neat thing to think about how that technology at that early age was made, and we used it all the way up to 1987 until we had better detections of that. But that's the story of the canary in the coal mine. So when you hear someone say, that could be the canary in the coal mine, it's the danger warning sign that something's imminent and could be harmful to the economy in this case. So just thought I'd share that. But to me, it's pretty clear that the administration's turning its attention to this 10-year Treasury. I mean, they're saying things like, hey, we've got to get the 10-year down. The investor spreads are going to get better and closer to 200, and this will drive down mortgage rate. I'm like, hello, someone gets it. Like, my goodness, how many times have we been saying that on the podcast there? We haven't heard anyone in the last 3 administrations talk to the public like this. I mean, to the point Scott Bessent said earlier last week, he believes the mortgage market will unlock in the next few weeks and that he believes spreads will be closer to 200. My goodness, I think we all look forward to that, and I would appreciate that be the case and welcome that very soon, as I know you guys would too, as potential homeowners and current homeowners out there. So guys, if you like what you're hearing, please share this podcast, 5-star review it. Check us out on YouTube at What's Your One More with the number 1. And till the next time, we'll see you at What's Your One More.
I got one more shot, I'm gonna make it. One more chance, I'm gonna take it. I meant it when I said it, now it's time for me to do it. I got one life to live.